What if I told you that the reason you keep stopping, the reason you keep second guessing yourself, feeling lost, distracted, overwhelmed, it's not because you're weak. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're broken. It's because you haven't found your why. You see, most people don't fail because they didn't have the talent. They fail because they had no reason to keep going when everything got heavy. No fire behind the effort, no anchor behind the ambition, just motion without meaning. And when life gets hard, and it will, motion isn't enough. Hype isn't enough. Passion fades. Motivation burns out. You need something deeper. Ask yourself this right now. If everything you're chasing disappeared tomorrow, your job, your titles, the applause, the followers, what would still matter to you? What would still make you get up, get dressed, and fight? That answer, that's your why. We live in a world where it's so easy to perform, to chase, to mimic. Everyone's out here building something, but few even know why they're building it. You go to school because they told you to. You get the job because everyone else did. You post the picture, you smile on cue, you work out because someone else's body made you feel insecure. But none of that is coming from you. So what happens? You start running out of fuel. You burn out. You start resenting your life. You start numbing out just to get through the day. You start to feel like a stranger in your own skin. And do you know why that happens? Because you're not living for you. You're living for approval. You're living for applause. You're living for things you don't even care about. But not anymore. This is your moment to stop lying to yourself, to stop playing small, to stop chasing what looks good and start building what feels true. Because the second you find your why, really find it, not just some cute quote on your vision board, everything changes. The way you speak, the way you walk into a room, the way you handle rejection, the way you wake up in the morning. It all shifts. You don't need more time, you don't need more motivation. You need to figure out what the hell you're doing this for. And once you do, nothing can stop you. Are you ready to find it? You were not put on this earth to float. You weren't made to drift through life, letting the tide carry you wherever it pleases. You weren't designed to wake up every day, go through the motions, and hope that somehow, without intention or direction, everything will magically fall into place. That is not your calling. That is not your design. People drift when they don't have an anchor. And that anchor is purpose. It's your why. Without it, you're tossed around by every opinion, every setback, every failure. You become reactive instead of proactive. Life happens to you instead of you happening to life. Think about it. How many times have you started something with excitement, but the moment it got hard, you quit? Not because you couldn't do it, but because you didn't know why you were doing it in the first place. Passion got you started, but passion without purpose doesn't survive the storm. Purpose is what keeps you grounded when everything around you is shaking. It's what helps you say no to distractions and yes to discipline. Because when you know why you're here, your decisions change. You stop entertaining things that drain you. You stop giving your energy to people who don't deserve it. You stop waiting for opportunities to fall in your lap and you start creating them. Most people are afraid to sit still. They're afraid to be alone with themselves. You want to know why? Because they don't know who they are without the noise. They've never taken the time to ask themselves, what do I really care about? What matters to me when the world isn't watching? That silence, that discomfort, that's the place where purpose lives. But you can't find it if you're constantly distracted, constantly trying to keep up, constantly filling your life with more, instead of asking what you're even filling it for. You weren't meant to live on autopilot. You weren't meant to simply react to life. You were meant to respond with clarity and conviction. People who have purpose aren't perfect. They still get tired, they still fall, but they get back up faster. Why? Because their reason is stronger than their excuses. They don't let pain stop them, they let it shape them. They don't avoid resistance, they rise through it. Look around at the people who inspire you. the ones who walk into a room and command presence, the ones who lead with power and compassion, the ones who stay standing even after life tried to knock them down again and again. They're not magical. They're not more gifted than you. They just know why they're here. They've done the hard inner work to uncover the fire that burns inside them, and they've committed to protecting it. Purpose is not something you find once and then forget. It's something you build every day. It evolves as you grow, but the core of it remains the same. It's that unshakable truth that keeps whispering, there's more in you, don't stop here. If you don't take the time to define your purpose, someone else will define it for you. Your job will become your identity. Your bank account will determine your self-worth. Your relationship status will define your happiness. Your followers will measure your value. And when those things change, and they will, you'll lose yourself. You'll wake up one day and realize you've built a life that looks good on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Purpose isn't about being impressive, it's about being intentional. It's about knowing what you stand for so you don't fall for anything. It's about waking up with a sense of direction that no title, no money, and no applause can give you. It's about living with integrity even when no one's watching. You can't wait for someone to hand it to you. It doesn't work like that. You have to dig for it. You have to be willing to ask yourself the hard questions. What breaks your heart? What excites your soul? What would you do if you weren't afraid of failing? Who do you want to become when no one's expecting anything from you? Purpose gives pain a place. It turns wounds into wisdom. It transforms setbacks into strategy. It gives suffering a voice and struggle a direction. When you have purpose, you can stand in the middle of a storm and still say, I'm not backing down. I'm not giving up. This has meaning. This has weight. And I'm going to use it. So no, you're not supposed to float. You're not here to just survive. You're here to build, to create, to lead, to impact. You're here to leave fingerprints on people's hearts and footprints in places that need your light. That only happens when you stop living passively and start living with purpose. Stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, why do I even want it? Because when you figure out your why, the how will reveal itself. The strength will rise up. The resilience will kick in. The noise will fade. And what will remain is a you that refuses to float. A you that's anchored, focused, unshakable. So I'll ask you one more time. What's your why? Pain is inevitable. Life guarantees it. Struggle, loss, rejection, failure. Heartbreak, these are not rare detours. They are the path itself. And if you don't have a reason deeper than the pain, you'll give up. Not because you couldn't go on, but because you didn't have something strong enough to pull you through. This is where most people break. They start with motivation, with hype, with that rush of energy that comes when everything feels fresh and exciting. But the minute that excitement wears off, they stop showing up. The minute things get uncomfortable, they retreat. Why? Because their why wasn't real. It was surface level. It was conditional. It was only good on good days. You see, the truth is, you're only going to get as far as your why is deep. If it's shallow, you'll crack under pressure. You'll run when it hurts. You'll quit when it gets hard. Because you never had something strong enough to stand on in the first place. But when your why is deeper than your pain, when it's rooted in something unshakable, you can walk through fire and not lose yourself. Everyone wants to be great until they realize greatness demands sacrifice. Everybody wants change until they realize change requires pain. And the only people who make it through are the ones whose purpose is greater than their suffering. They don't push through because it's easy. They push through because it matters, because they've attached their journey to something that can't be negotiated. Think about it. The strongest people you know, the ones who survived loss, built from nothing, endured criticism, carried heavy burdens. They're not superhuman. They're simply clear. They know what they're fighting for. Their reason isn't about looking good or proving a point. It's about legacy. It's about healing. It's about becoming who they were meant to be. When you have a why that's rooted in ego, it will crumble. If your only reason is to prove someone wrong, to impress people, to collect applause, to be liked, it won't last. Because what happens when those people stop watching? What happens when the applause fades? What happens when you achieve the thing and still feel empty? That's when the truth comes out. That's when you realize your why wasn't strong enough. You need something that will keep you going when there's no one to clap for you, when there's no recognition, when it's just you, your thoughts, and the weight of everything you're trying to carry. Your why has to survive silence. It has to withstand failure. It has to endure being misunderstood. Because pain doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up. And if you're not ready, if you're not anchored, you'll fall apart. You have to make your purpose bigger than your excuses, bigger than your distractions, bigger than the comfort that keeps you small. Because here's the truth. If you don't suffer for something meaningful, you'll suffer for nothing at all. You'll end up in cycles of regret, always wondering why things never worked out. And the answer will be the same every time. You didn't have a reason strong enough to keep going when it got real. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the test. It asks, do you mean what you say? Are you really committed? Or were you just in love with the idea of success? Pain will expose every lie you've told yourself, every shortcut you tried to take, every part of you that wanted the reward but didn't want the responsibility. But pain is also the teacher, the refiner, the thing that forces you to level up or step aside. And when your why is deep enough, you don't run from pain. You grow through it. You let it build you, stretch you, and sharpen you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start saying, this is preparing me for something greater. There will be days you want to quit. Days where your body is tired, your mind is overwhelmed, your heart is heavy. And it's in those moments where your why has to speak louder than your feelings. Emotions will lie to you. Doubt will whisper in your ear. Fear will try to paralyze you. But your purpose, it will keep pulling you forward if you let it. Your why needs to have roots. It needs to be planted so deep that no storm can rip it out. You don't get that from comfort. You don't build that with ease. You build that through fire, through showing up when everything in you says stop, through choosing to rise when staying down would be easier, through sacrificing the short term for the long term, through bleeding for something that actually means something. If you don't know what that why is yet, don't panic. Don't rush, but start asking. Start paying attention to what makes your heart ache and what makes it come alive. Notice where your pain has tried to teach you. Listen to your own story. There are clues in everything you survived. There is gold in the things that almost broke you. Your purpose is hidden in the very place you tried to escape from. So let your why be sacred. Let it be real. Let it be personal. Don't borrow it. Don't fake it. Don't perform it. Dig until you find something that makes you cry, that makes you fight, that makes you rise up with fire in your chest and say, I'm not giving up. Not now, not ever, because this matters too much. Make your why deeper than pain. That's the only way you'll survive it. Stop trying to live a life someone else imagined for you. Stop chasing a version of success that doesn't even feel like yours. Too many people wake up every morning walking a path that was never meant for them. Not because they chose it, but because they were told to. They're carrying dreams handed down by parents, teachers, influencers, society, but deep down they feel empty. That emptiness, that's what happens when your life is disconnected from your truth. You were not created to be a carbon copy. You weren't meant to echo someone else's vision, someone else's plan, someone else's expectations. But that's exactly what we do. We scroll through social media and confuse what we see with what we want. We confuse inspiration with imitation. And before you know it, you're building a life that may impress the world, but it's slowly suffocating your soul. People start businesses they hate because it looks good. They go after careers that crush them because it earns them praise. They stay in relationships that drain them because it's socially acceptable. They post pictures of a life that looks perfect but feels fake, all because they borrowed a why that was never meant to be theirs. And when the storm comes, and it will, that kind of why won't hold. It will collapse under pressure. It will leave you lost and confused because you never stopped to ask yourself, is this even what I want? This isn't about being rebellious. It's about being real. It's about giving yourself permission to want what you actually want, not what looks good on paper, not what earns you applause, not what fits into someone else's definition of success. You need a why that's born out of your story, your values, your fire, not one that's copied from someone else's highlight reel. If you've never questioned your dreams, you might not be dreaming your own. If you've never paused to ask why you want what you want, chances are you're chasing shadows. And those shadows will leave you burned out, bitter, and disoriented, because a why that comes from outside of you will always lead you away from yourself. Think about it. How much of what you pursue is driven by what others will think? How many decisions have you made out of fear of disappointing someone, out of a need to belong, out of a need to be seen? Approval is a drug, and like any drug, the more you depend on it, the less you know who you are without it. You begin to measure your worth through filters, through likes, through validation. But the truth is, no amount of applause will ever make up for living a lie. Your why has to come from solitude, from silence, from stillness, from those moments when you sit with yourself, stripped of the noise, and ask, what makes me feel alive? What breaks my heart? What do I believe in so deeply that I'd fight for it even if no one supported me? That's where your real why is hiding. Not in the trends, not in the algorithms, not in someone else's version of a perfect life. It's buried underneath the fear and the pretending and the pressure to perform. And yes, finding it is hard because it forces you to unlearn everything you thought you needed. It forces you to let go of the masks. It forces you to disappoint people who only loved you for the version of yourself that played it safe. But freedom costs something, and authenticity is expensive, but it's worth everything. When you live from a borrowed why, you lose your sense of direction. You start climbing ladders, leaning against the wrong walls. You get to the top and realize you were never meant to be there. And that regret, that soul-deep disappointment, that's what happens when you realize you sacrificed your real life for an illusion. But the good news is this: you can stop. You can stop right now. You can press pause. You can give yourself permission to delete the blueprint someone else gave you. You can start listening to the small voice inside that's been whispering, there's more for you. Because there is. There's a version of your life that fits you like a second skin. One that doesn't require performance or pretending. One that feels like truth. And when you start living from that place, when your why is truly yours, everything shifts. Your energy changes. Your confidence deepens. Your focus sharpens. You stop second-guessing your steps because you know what you're doing it for. You're not chasing approval, you're chasing alignment. You're not proving yourself, you're becoming yourself. You stop running in circles because now you're moving with clarity. And that kind of clarity, it's magnetic. It pulls the right opportunities, the right people, the right energy. You stop feeling lost because you're no longer trying to live someone else's map. You've drawn your own. And even if that map is uncertain, even if the path is messy, it's yours. And that's what makes it powerful. So stop borrowing your why from the world. The world doesn't know your story. It doesn't know your scars. It doesn't know your dreams. Only you do. And if you don't own them, if you don't protect them, you'll live a life of quiet frustration, always wondering why it never felt like enough. But it can be enough. It can be more than enough. If you're willing to do the brave thing, if you're willing to step away from the noise and step into your truth, that's where the real power lives. That's where your why will rise. And once it does, nothing and no one will be able to stop you. Your why isn't just about you. It never was. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. Because you're not just carrying your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. You're carrying someone else's breakthrough, someone else's hope, someone else's strength. There are people you haven't even met yet. who are waiting for you to step into your purpose. But we forget that. We think purpose is personal. We think it's selfish to want more, to want to be great, to want to win. And we make the mistake of shrinking ourselves down to stay comfortable, to stay safe. But you weren't given the vision you have just for your benefit. You were given it so you could use it to serve. Purpose isn't a possession. It's a responsibility. And if you don't show up, somebody else pays for that. You might not see them yet. The young girl who needs your story to believe in herself again. The man in silence trying to hold his world together, who just needs one voice to remind him he's not alone. The person scrolling through their feed on the edge of giving up, who finds your words, your courage, your light, and chooses to keep going. You don't even know how powerful your presence can be, because you're so used to shrinking it. That's why your why matters. It's the engine that drives not just your success, but your impact. You think it's about you, but it's not. It's about the chain reaction your life is meant to ignite. It's about the people your story will reach, the doors your courage will open, the pain your survival will heal in others. Every time you quit on yourself, you don't just rob yourself, you rob them too. There's someone praying for a solution you were born to create. There's someone searching for a voice that sounds like yours, for a truth that only you can speak. And they'll never hear it if you keep playing small, if you keep doubting your worth, if you keep waiting for perfect conditions. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. It needs you to be real, to be honest, to be you. Think about your own life. The people who shaped you, the ones who spoke a word right when you needed it. The book you read, the video you watched, the stranger who smiled at you on your worst day. That wasn't random, that was purpose in motion. That was someone else's why spilling over into your life. And now it's your turn to do the same. That fire you've got, it's not for decoration. That pain you've been through, it's not a punishment, it's preparation. You were built to carry more than you think. Not for ego, but for service, for legacy, for healing. When you stop making it about you, your strength multiplies, your resolve sharpens. You stop asking, what do I get out of this? And you start asking, who gets freedom when I don't quit? Your impact isn't measured by likes, by titles, by applause. It's measured by the people you reach without even knowing it. The quiet observers, the ones in the back who watch you overcome and think, maybe I can too. The ones who hear your truth and finally find the courage to face their own. But they won't get that chance if you keep hiding. If you keep putting off your purpose for someday. If you keep waiting until you feel ready. Readiness is a lie. Purpose doesn't wait on perfect. It demands movement. It demands obedience. It demands you wake up and realize that you don't get to opt out of your calling just because it's hard. The cost of inaction is too high. You don't know how far your ripple can reach. A word, a gesture, a decision you make today could echo through generations. You could be the reason someone starts healing, the reason someone finally believes in something again, the reason someone breaks the cycle, builds the business, writes the book, saves their own life. You don't get to see it all, but that doesn't mean it's not real. There are people waiting on the other side of your courage. People waiting on the other side of your discipline, your sacrifice, your fight. Your why is a lifeline. And if you don't throw it out into the world, some will sink who were meant to rise. It's not about guilt. It's about purpose, about understanding that your life has weight, that your presence has power, that your existence is not accidental. This is bigger than you. Always has been. You were never meant to walk this road just for your own comfort. You were meant to build something that others could walk on. You were meant to dig deep so someone else doesn't have to drown. You were meant to endure so others could find endurance in your story. That's purpose. That's legacy. That's the kind of why that no pain, no failure, no fear can break. So ask yourself, what are you really doing this for? If your answer stops at you, it's not deep enough. Let your why stretch beyond your life. Let it serve, let it inspire, let it be the spark that lights up places you'll never even see. because someone somewhere is waiting, and they won't get what they need until you become who you were meant to be. So don't quit. Don't hide. Don't waste another day waiting for a better one. The world needs you awake, needs you clear, needs you committed. Because your why is the bridge someone else will one day walk across to find their own. There comes a point in your life when quitting isn't an option, not because someone else said so, but because deep inside, something bigger than you refuses to let you walk away. That's what it feels like when your why is crystal clear, when your purpose is so rooted, so personal, so sacred, that to give up on it would feel like betrayal, not to the world, not to your audience, but to yourself. When your why is powerful, quitting doesn't feel like relief. It feels like self-betrayal. It feels like looking yourself in the mirror and lying straight to your own face. It feels like burying a part of you that still wants to breathe. And that discomfort, that internal conflict, that's the signal that your purpose matters. That what you're doing isn't just a project or a phase or a goal. It's a calling. You don't get to that kind of clarity overnight. It's forged through pain, through trials, through moments of silence where you strip away every excuse, every distraction, every maybe later, and get brutally honest about what you're here to do. It comes when you've been tested, when you've been knocked down enough times to realize that the fight wasn't pointless. It was preparation. When your why is vague, it's easy to quit. When it's based on status, approval, or convenience, you'll fold the moment it gets hard. But when your why is real, when it's connected to something that keeps you up at night and wakes you up in the morning, quitting becomes unthinkable because you know that stopping would cost you more than continuing ever could. It's easy to look like you're committed when everything's going well. It's easy to stay motivated when you're getting results, when the support is strong, when people are clapping. But what happens when it gets quiet? What happens when nothing seems to be working? What happens when your efforts go unnoticed and your sacrifices feel invisible? That's when your why has to show up. Not your motivation, not your energy, not your hype, your why. It has to remind you of the promise you made to yourself. It has to remind you of the version of you that started this journey, the one who believed it was possible, the one who said, I will not settle for less. Because here's the truth. Every time you quit, you create distance between who you are and who you were meant to be. You step away from your potential. You deny the future that's waiting for you. And the pain of quitting, it might not hit you right away. It might feel like relief at first. But eventually, it shows up as regret, as restlessness, as that deep nagging feeling that you walked away from something that mattered. You have to anchor your life to something unshakable. You have to build your why on a foundation that can't be moved by temporary emotions. Because emotions will change. You'll have days when you're tired, days when you doubt yourself, days when the progress feels microscopic. And on those days, your why has to be so loud, so clear, so personal that it cuts through every excuse. You have to ask yourself, what would I be betraying if I quit right now? Who would I disappoint? And not just externally, but internally. Would you be able to sit with yourself knowing that you turned your back on something that once set your soul on fire? Would you be able to live with the knowledge that you didn't fail because it was impossible, but because you gave up too soon? That kind of clarity changes everything. It changes how you show up. It changes how you think, how you plan, how you respond to setbacks. Because you're no longer operating from a place of trying, you're operating from a place of conviction. And people with conviction don't just try, they decide, they commit, they build discipline, they sacrifice, they find a way. The truth is, most people are comfortable living in the in-between, half in, half out, committed until it hurts, dedicated until it's inconvenient. But that's not where greatness lives. That's not where breakthroughs happen. You have to cross that invisible line where you say, I'm all in, burn the ships, no backup plan, no exit strategy. That's the kind of mindset that produces miracles. This doesn't mean you won't struggle. It doesn't mean you won't have breakdowns or moments of fear. But it does mean you'll always come back. You'll rest, but you won't quit. You'll cry, but you'll keep going. You'll fall, but you'll get back up every single time because your why won't let you stay down. It will pull you forward even when your strength gives out. That's what makes it sacred. So if you're at the edge right now, thinking about walking away, thinking maybe it's not worth it, pause, breathe, remember your why. Go back to the moment that lit the fire in you. Go back to the reason you started, before the pressure, before the noise, before the disappointment. Let it remind you you're not done. You're not finished. You're still in this for a reason. And if you don't have that level of clarity yet, it's time to find it. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Dig until you discover the truth underneath the surface. Not what sounds good, but what feels true. Because once you find that kind of why, you'll realize that quitting isn't just a decision, it's a betrayal. And you weren't built to betray yourself. You were built to become. So don't you dare walk away, not now, not ever. This matters too much. And deep down you know it. If you've made it this far, then you already know the truth. This journey was never supposed to be easy, but it was always supposed to be worth it. Your why is your compass, your fire, your anchor in the middle of every storm. And if you haven't found it yet, then your only mission now is to go get it. No more running, no more floating, no more chasing dreams that don't belong to you. It's time to stand still, dig deep, and ask yourself the real questions. Because once your why becomes clear, everything else aligns. The noise fades, the fear shrinks, the excuses lose their power. But clarity alone isn't enough. You have to protect your why. You have to fight for it every single day, when it hurts, when it's quiet, when no one believes in you, when you don't even believe in yourself, because your why is the bridge between the person you are and the person you're meant to be. And if you walk away from it, you don't just walk away from a goal, you walk away from you. So don't quit. Not now, not ever. Someone out there is waiting for you to rise. Someone you haven't even met yet will be saved because you didn't give up. And someday, when you look back at this moment, this fight, this struggle, this choice, you'll be proud. Not because it was easy, but because you chose purpose over comfort. You chose truth over fear. You chose your why over the world's distractions. And that is what makes you unstoppable.